Onitekun. I work with Africa PPP Advisory. I've been with AP3 for more than 2 years, going to 3 years right now. I work in a transaction advisory team. Africa PPP Advisory basically is an infrastructure finance PPP specialist. And what brings distinction to AP3 is we bring world-class expertise and local knowledge to deliver value-driven infrastructure finance consulting services across emerging economies, with diverse clientele, public, private, and development financial institutions. So basically, at the high level, that's AP3. And of course, over the past 10 years, we've been very catalytic in delivering successful infrastructure across Africa and, of course, emerging economies. For my time here at AP3, I've been involved in a couple of projects that delivers value and impact. For example, to start with, I'll start with the Africa Green Economic Summit, which was held in February. I can't remember the exact date now. I was part of a team who put together, alongside with, of course, AGS team, who put together over $1 billion pipeline of projects. And basically what we do is to screen the project to ascertain the viability of the projects, of course, from the investor's point of view, to ascertain the climate benefits of the project, and of course, economic benefits of the project. So these are one of the, at high level, the criteria. And of course, the impact of this then is that it then positions this project to assess funding, of course, either at the early stage or for downstream funding. So, and of course, I've been also involved in a project that, of course, now in agriculture, AFDB funded special agro-processing zone work, where, of course, this is in Nigeria. We developed a feasibility study for one of the subnationals to position them as assess fund from the AFDB. And what this does in the ripple effect is that, of course, bringing economic benefit. If I could recall, this project in particular offers over 20,000 job opportunities, to people. And of course, the project offers quite an interesting investment returns to investors. Yeah. So this, just at the very high level, some of the projects I've been involved in and delivers value and impact. Yes, I can say that the nature is for man, the environment is for man. So when we prioritize the environment, we are basically prioritizing ourselves. We are prioritizing the livelihood of man. Sadly, Africa contributes minimally to global emission. However, Africa is more vulnerable, to climate change crisis. So it is very important that Africa take a leadership role to mitigate and adapt to climate change. Statistics from the African Development Bank suggest that Africa loses $7 to $15 billion annually to the frequency and severity of climate-related disaster, flood, different forms of climate-related disaster. It's important that different innovation begin to come to ensure that this prevailing crisis is mitigated. And of course, it's quite saddening that if we don't take the leadership role to address these critical problems, the statistics record that we stand at a critical junction of losing $50 billion annually to climate-related disaster. And of course, climate-related initiative, Green Project Initiative, is bringing more opportunities that Africa can tap into, providing opportunities to livelihood, sustainability of environment, and all that. So addressing climate change, Green Project Initiative is critical to the development and sustainability of Africa. The main obstacles, from my point of view, is summed up to one, which is limited access to funding, limited access to finance. I believe the willpower is there, the commitment is there. You've seen different African nations making pledges to the Paris Agreement. So that suggests to us, yes, the political will is there. However, there's limited access to funding. And of course, quite interesting, the funding is available, but the technical expertise, the environment to assess this fund is quite limited. I will, of course, bring this in particular to a limited access to upfront investment costs. For example, renewable energy technologies requires upfront investments, and this is quite limited for the continent to assess. And of course, there's high level of perceived risk in the continent, high level of insecurity, policy and political instability around exchange rate, inflation. All these, bring a level of hindrance to assessing a pool of funding available. And of course, lack of expertise, especially on developing bankable projects. Because for an investor to commit his or her fund to a project, the investor needs to be sure that the project makes commercial sense, that the project is commercially viable. And the expertise, the resources to get this done is not there. Most projects do not have find it difficult to bring forward detailed visibility studies that captures the commercial viability of the project, the economic viability of the project, the financial modeling, because investor needs to see this to ensure that the projects are viable before they can commit their resources. So we have limited bankable projects in Africa, limited bankable projects, perceived risk. Now, these, for me, are the key obstacles that we must begin to mitigate. And of course, we have the resources are there, the expertise are there, but most project sponsor, most project owner do not have access to this information. And that is why companies like AP3 bridge this gap to ensure that the technical expertise is there to assess this fund at the global level. The funds is there, the money is there, but there is no expertise to assess the fund. Yes, driving a sustainable and equitable transition requires a collaborative approach. It is not government alone, it is not private alone, it is not the non-governmental organizations alone. It requires a collaborative effort. And what do I mean? A collaborative effort that understands the strength of the government, that understands the strength of the private, that understands the strength of the NGO. The government alone cannot do it, private alone cannot do it, NGO alone cannot do it. So we need to come together, to leverage our collaborative power to drive a just and equitable transition. Take, for example, government in itself needs to provide a conducive environment in terms of policy and a regulatory framework to ensure that businesses thrive, to ensure that NGOs can play in this space. And of course, NGOs bring a unique expertise to this because they have more access, to the communities who are heavily impacted by climate change. They bring this unique blend to bring all sort of stakeholders, engagements, resources together to ensure that everybody's voice, everybody's expertise is leveraged. And of course, private sectors bring the technical capability to ensure that we all come together and a just and equitable transition is achievable for the continent. So government needs to bring the regulatory and the policy environment, private needs to bring the technical expertise, and NGO needs to bring the awareness, the community engagement to ensure that the approach is bottom up, both from the grassroots to the entire policy environment. So it's a sided approach. Yeah, thank you. The most current investment opportunity in this space, particularly in green projects, climate mitigation, adaptation, cross-cutting, what have you, statistics suggest that 60% of untapped resources in renewable energy is domiciled in Africa. That is massive. The resources are there. However, I think there's this thing about the benefit of challenges. We've seen the era of COVID. there's a way business is done before COVID. Now there's imagination that has gone into how business are done post-COVID. What's compelled that level of innovation is the crisis, is the COVID crisis. Now climate crisis is on the loop. So for me, what that brings is that it begins to bring a higher level of innovative power to ensure that, yes, all these resources that has been long available in the continents, we now begin to think of how we can maximize and tap into this resource. So for me, I think renewable energy offers a very impressive opportunity. We're hosting 60% of our tap resources in the globe. I think that's massive for Africa. And of course, climate smart agriculture also offers an incredible opportunity. And of course, because Africa hosts abundance of natural resources. So climate change is bringing us to the realization that, yes, it is time for us to begin to tap into these resources and begin to leverage them for our benefits as a continent. Yes. I was part of, in partnership with the AGS team. I played a key role in screening projects to ensure projects are climate smart and the project ensure profiles economic benefit. One thing I think I should mention at this junction is that pool of funding available, and there are different criteria that have been set by fund providers that each project, each initiative must meet. So one of the things that I did was to ensure that we understand in detail the criteria, because we have different funders. We have to understand the criteria for different funding, and we now begin to look at this project to see, okay, how can we match this project to meet this criteria? So I played a key role in ensuring that we're able to identify key investors, key funders, likes of the African Development Bank, the European Investment Bank, Islamic Development Bank, the Afrexim Bank. Bring them in the pool, and of course, we have access to this project. How can we begin to match this project to ensure that they have access to funding? So I played a key role to ensure that, Africa Green Economy Summit is the right marketplace for projects, sponsors, and investors to meet, because this is actually the critical mismatch. The money is there, but the technical capacity to ensure that projects meet the criteria of this funding is really lacking. So I played a key role in bridging this gap at the Africa Green Economy Summit. Yes, I think one thing that I would like to say, as a word is that Africa really needs to take the transitioning to a resilient and low carbon environment in a way that is more realistic to our development context. The pace at which developed nations transit may not necessarily reflect or matches our development realities. Our transition must be gradual. Our transition must be, let me use the word, gentle. We have to ensure a just and equitable transition. And for us to do this, we must always ensure that our ambitious one aligns with our development realities. Our ambition aligns with the population. And when I mean the population, I'm talking about the human capability, the human capital development reality of the nation, just to ensure that, yes, a just and equitable transition is favored. So, yeah.